Oh, hey, perfect timing. Last set, just squeezing that one out, right? But anyway, what's up guys? I'm Ryan, another video here from Iron Fitness. And today we're gonna talk about something controversial. And no, I'm not talking about the Apple Maps versus Google Maps, because that's a unanimous decision.
No, that's not a unanimous decision.
What? That's something people debate about?
Yeah, people debate that.
Like people actually think that there's an answer besides Apple Maps? Okay, well, that blows my mind because I feel like Apple Maps is by far the clear winner, but apparently that's contentious. Doesn't matter, that's not what this video is about at all. What this is about is something everybody deals with. You've dealt with it, I'm dealing with it right now. Lauren behind the camera is definitely dealing with it right now. And it's a complex issue. And what we're talking about here in this video is pain. Lifting with pain, lifting through pain, and lifting around pain. I'm gonna give you guidelines on when you should do the lifting around, when you should do the lifting through, and maybe when you should stop lifting. So let's get right into it. So the first thing I wanna do is define pain. And honestly, this is a very complex definition. For this video, I listened to multiple podcasts about pain, pain management, pain with exercise. I read through multiple research papers, and pretty much every single one came up with a different definition of pain. A different way of describing how it feels, a different way of describing how you should deal with it, right? And that's why I wanted to make this video. And this is because usually pain is subjective, right? Your experience of pain can be completely different than mine. Your past experiences are gonna dictate maybe your future experiences with pain, depending on what has happened, right? But there are models that have been around for a really long time that can be more consistent in how we define pain and how pain actually works. So one of the first models, and this was in about the 1600s, is the Cartesian model. And basically it's as simple as tissue damage equals pain. And that was the model for hundreds of years. Until more recently, right, our modern science, we like to sometimes make things more complicated. But I think in this approach, this model is a little bit more descriptive and better for how we can think about pain. And that's gonna be the biopsychosocial model, right? So basically you can break that into your past experiences are gonna dictate how you feel about pain. Your expectations are gonna dictate how you feel about pain. Maybe the season of life that you're in at that time, there's a lot of stress, that's gonna influence how you feel pain as well. So there's a lot more factors than just tissue damage equals pain. And I think the best way to prove to you that the biopsychosocial model is better than the Cartesian model of pain is the classic MRI of the back, right? There's research papers about this, and also I know one of my family members who've done this recently. I told them not to, but it's when you go in, right, especially if you've been lifting, you go in for maybe something that has nothing to do with your back, or you are going in for back pain. And a lot of doctors, maybe to no fault of their own, they're gonna get an MRI of your back. And what are they gonna find? Most likely, they're gonna find potentially multiple slip discs, but probably definitely one if you've been lifting for any appreciable amount of time and loading, deadlift, squat, any of the movements heavy enough, you're gonna probably have some sort of vertebral disc damage. But here's the kicker, and this is why the Cartesian model is kind of outdated. There are a lot of times, like I guarantee for me, right, if I went into the doctor, had back pain, they want to do an MRI, that's fine if they need to do it for whatever reason. I would tell them specifically, do not tell me if I have any slip discs, right? If you see it on the MRI, right, the radiologist, I don't wanna know. Because then every time I deadlift, it's gonna be in the back of my mind, right? I'm gonna know that I have slip discs, and I might start basically creating pain with this experience. And that's the biopsychosocial model, is that pain can be caused by more than just tissue damage. Because there's the flip side of that, is like I said, I guarantee I have at least a couple, and you probably do too if you've been lifting long enough. I don't feel pain right now. I don't have any symptoms of a potential slip disc in my back. I'm about to deadlift. I mean, you saw, right? I was already deadlifting, right? Of course. But next time I deadlift, I'm not gonna have to worry about that because if I don't have an actual diagnosis, there's nothing gonna stop me from deadlifting. And if I deadlift and I get a little bit of back pain, which is pretty normal, we're about to talk about that next, there's not that kind of inclination to be like, oh, that's my slip disc. Oh, I probably shouldn't deadlift anymore because now every time I deadlift, it hurts, right? So it's that negative feedback cycle. And that can lead to something called fear avoidance. And then all of a sudden I'm not deadlifting anymore because I have a slip disc, because the MRI showed, even though I was asymptomatic before that. And that leads me into my next point, which is beginner lifters versus advanced lifters. So I wanna tell you, if you're a beginner, you're gonna go to the gym, right? You might do a deadlift for the first time or maybe a heavy deadlift for the first time. The next morning or even later that day, your back is probably gonna be sore and it's probably gonna hurt. And this is not the type of soreness or pain that you get from like, a really good quad pump and like, oh yeah, my quads are sore. I made a completely different video about that. I'll link it above, about whether or not you should lift when you're sore and what causes muscle soreness. So check that out if you haven't yet. But this kind of pain or this kind of soreness is kind of like that sketchy, like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't do that again. And I'm here to tell you that those kind of aches and pains, especially with compound movements, are completely normal. Nothing to be scared of. Now, obviously, if you can't like flex and bend over, maybe that's a little bit different, but you're gonna feel pain in spots like your back and other weird spots you didn't even know you could feel pain when you do novel movements, right? Or movements for the first time that are loaded heavy enough. So I want you to be ready for that, and it's not a reason to not go back to the gym. Most of this pain is just a normal part of going to the gym, and over time you're gonna get used to it, and obviously your back's not gonna hurt every time you deadlift, or your knees are not gonna hurt every time you squat. And this is the big point here, is that for the first however many times you squat or your deadlift, if your technique is not correct, you might get these weird pains. Like every time I squat, my left knee hurts. That does not mean you have a bad knee and you can't squat. That I would not even think about that if you're a beginner stage. Now, if we're going advanced stages, right? Now we're talking about, okay, maybe let's substitute a different movement. You don't need to squat unless you're a power lifter. If that's your sport, then we got to figure out another option, right? But for me, I'm not a power lifter, and if squats are hurting, which they are right now, and they are hurting my specific left knee, it's like, how do I come up with the example, We'll talk about that in a bit, but I'm gonna find a different movement. I don't need to lift through that pain right now. So on that note, let's get to the crux of this video. Should you lift with pain? The answer is yes, because you're gonna have to. It's not yes that you should, it's that if you wanna do any sort of exercise long-term or activities outside, right? We're talking mountain biking, skiing, hang gliding, that's like, of course, you're probably gonna have some accidents there. That's pretty risky. But even just running, no matter what, I think it's almost inevitable. You are gonna have some sort of pain. You're gonna have some ankle pain, some knee pain, shoulder pain, something like that. It's gonna happen. It's not gonna be some like career-ending injury, right? But it's gonna be something that you have to sit there and think about, maybe try to fix through physical therapy, or you're gonna have to lift through the pain for an appreciable amount of time or lift around it. But first, it's also important to understand that I'm sitting here, I'm not a pain expert. I am not a pain doctor, right? I don't do research on pain, but I do have a lot of experience for myself with pain and a lot of my clients that I've trained that have had pain. So I've developed a system like a pain plan or a pain narrative that you can kind of run through each time you feel something from the gym or an activity to make you decide whether you should keep going through it, should you go around it, or maybe you should take a little break for a bit. So first things first, when something happens, when you get an injury, whether or not, so for me, this is the one I think about. It was this year in the CrossFit Open. I think it was 24.2 or 3, the one with the thrusters and the muscle ups, right? I was doing a thruster. I think it was like the 135 pound one, right? Which for me is, I'm not good at CrossFit. That was heavy, okay? And my girlfriend was there. I was trying to impress her, and I was like at the open gym. So like there's all these people I don't know. They're rooting me on. So I went for one more than I should have in a set. I should have broken it up. And as I came down, this wrist literally just gave out on me at the bottom of the squat, and these fingers literally touched my forearm. It was the freakiest feeling ever. I've never had anything like that. But instantly, in my head, I was like, oh, I tore a ligament. Like there's no way my wrist can just bend like that with 135 pounds. The barbell like slipped all weird too. So I started catastrophizing. And that's pretty normal for us, right? Like when something, especially when you feel it like that, you're like, oh, my knee tweaked and I heard something pop. It's easy to catastrophize. It's easy to have expectations that injury is gonna be severe, that you might need surgery, you're gonna go to the doctor, ER, right? But doing the research I did, it is very important not to do that. With that biopsychosocial model, they have found that you can pretty much increase your pain significantly by having expectations or by kind of going down that downward spiral of this is that. Like we don't know, right? You can't tell. There's so many crazy things like that. Like for me, my wrist was fine in like a week or two. It was like, I did not expect that. But for the next 2 days, I was freaking myself out. And it did hurt more because of that, I guarantee it. So I think the best way to approach this is when something happens, you just need to chill, take a deep breath, and evaluate the next day. Like, yes, you're gonna be sitting there thinking about it, of course, but you need to, the next day, check range of motion, right? Check if there's massive swelling, and then check for tenderness. If there's probably gonna be tenderness, but if there's not swelling, at least for me, if there's not swelling and I have pretty much all my range of motion, whether it's painful or not, I'm fine. Like, I'm not gonna go to the doctor, I might chill for a sec, but it's not something serious. But if you have a ton of swelling, ton of tenderness, and you're lacking range of motion, probably time to go to the doctor, right? So what I wanna do now is talk through my personal experience. I'll give you the guidelines that I always use for my pain plan or pain narrative when something happens in the gym or when I'm doing an activity. So recently, my left knee's been hurting, okay? It hurts specifically with squats. So this, I'm gonna walk you through my plan and how I decide to lift through, lift around, or stop lifting. So my warm-up is king for me. When I go to the gym, no matter what's hurting, I will try to warm up for that day. I'll try, say I'm lifting legs, right? It's my knee. I'm gonna do my normal warm-up. And if I plan to squat, if squats have been hurting my knee, I'm gonna squat with the barbell like I normally would, right? If after my warm-up and my movement-specific warm-up, so squatting, if I can't feel my knee pain, then I'm gonna go through and do my exact same workout that it was planned, right? What I will do is monitor each set, is my knee hurting more? If it's staying the same and or not hurting at all, right? Because as you warm up normally, the endorphins, the blood flow, these kind of things, most of the time your pain might go away. So if mine's gone away, I'll do my exact same workout, same weight, same reps, everything. It's gonna hurt after. I always know that. But that for me is not gonna affect my workouts going forward. I know it's gonna hurt after. It's gonna get sore just like your muscles would get sore. And since it is slightly injured, whether or not it's actual tissue damage or it's that biopsychosocial thing, like I'm expecting it to hurt, so it hurts, I'm not worried about it. If it feels good after my warm-up and it feels good in the workout, I'm gonna continue doing exactly what I wanna do. But if it doesn't feel good in the warm-up, maybe it's getting worse or it's still that same ache or pain that you had going in, then I'm gonna lift around the pain. I'm not lifting through anymore. So for me, squat, this has literally happened the other day. Squats have been hurting my knee, I warmed up, no, it did not feel better. Squatting with the barbell hurt. So I'm not gonna be stupid and lift through the pain because I used to do that. And then those little injuries lead to longer, bigger injuries. So what I'm gonna do is, knowing what I know, I'm not a strength athlete, right? I'm not a power lifter. I don't need to squat. I love squatting. But unless you have a very specific reason to do a movement, there are so many movements you can do instead. So I did leg press. And for whatever reason, right, because the body's crazy, different leverages, all the things, right? My knee didn't hurt. I was able to load leg press just as heavy as I would have loaded a squat. I got a great quad pump, right? We're good. That's kind of what I want you to think about. That's how I do it. And I think that you should think about it that way as well. Pain should not stop you from going to the gym. You should always show up, do your normal warm-up, and then see how you feel. Because lifting around pain is very easy. There's so many different movements that you can do where you're still getting the blood flow and you're still getting that movement, right? And like we talked about, movement is king. You want to get the blood flow going. You want to move that joint through the range of motion. All right, so to quickly recap, if it hurts going to the gym and your warm-up makes it feel better, I would try to lift through the pain. If it gets worse as you're lifting, even if it did feel good in the warm-up, I would switch immediately and try to lift around the pain. If you go to the gym and stuff is hurting and in the warm-up doesn't make it feel better at all or maybe makes it feel worse, that would probably be a time where if it was leg day, I'm going upper body. Just give it another day or two of rest. Or you can lift completely around the pain and still kind of get some local blood flow. So say if it's my left knee pain, it hurts from squats, that's more of a quad dominant movement, I could hit hamstrings, right? Still leg day, still getting some kind of local pump. The blood flow is still flowing through my leg, but I'm not doing any more, damage to my knee if you want to think about it like that. And that's the beauty of lifting. And that's what I'm going to leave you with here, is that movement is king. And in my opinion, there is literally no better medicine than exercise. Exercise will always be the king. I don't care what kind of pills you could take, maybe in the future, right? with all this AI, crazy stuff going on, maybe us becoming robots, exercise will still always be the best thing for feeling better, physically, emotionally. It's just such an awesome thing that we can do every day if we choose to. And we should choose to. Just generally, right? I'm not talking about lifting every day, but movement, walking your dog, doing a hike. These aren't things you're gonna get sore from, and it's gonna affect your workout the next day. So movement is king. Keep that in mind. And in terms of the gym, because I know it takes time, right? Everybody, we're a finite time, especially as I get older now. It feels like my time is like all of a sudden every single night, it's just like 9:30 at night. I don't know how that happens, but in the interest of time, my next video is gonna save you a lot of it. And it's specifically to do with the gym. While you're at the gym, you're gonna save a ton of time there and probably look cool while you're doing it. So be on the lookout for that. But until next time, happy lifting.